So as promised, here's part two of today's video series, I guess you can kind of call it, of how the Democrat Party is in major trouble. If you haven't seen the first video, definitely go and check it out because we talk about it a lot in that video. But in this clip specifically, we got to talk about some dollars and some cents because Democrats are in major trouble when it comes to the dollars. Let's dive in.
I'm telling you right now, the biggest story of 2028, Patty disagrees with me about whether there'll be other candidates, but Vance is going to have $2 billion on this trajectory. Headline from the Journal: Elon Musk pledged to start a political party. He's already pumping the brakes. The billionaire has sought to maintain ties with J.D. Vance, the potential heir to Trump's MAGA political environment. I'm not predicting this will happen, but on the current trajectory, Trump will endorse Vance. He'll have no real opposition. He'll have $2 billion raised before the Democrats start their primaries and caucuses. And the Democratic Party is doing nothing to stop this. I'm not sure what they could do, but they're doing nothing. Then go now to that the New York Times headline. A bunch of prominent California Democrats, including Casey Wasserman, who was one of the biggest financial supporters of Hillary Clinton and of Joe Biden, are holding a fundraiser. Susan Collins to get Hollywood treatment at fundraiser featuring Democrats. Democrats hoping to retake the Senate in the midterm elections next year are targeting the seat of Susan Collins, who is seen as a moderate. And then lastly, an AP story, not breaking any huge news, but this is the most political White House of all time, at least in my career. AP: Trump moves to use the levers of presidential power to help his party in the 2026 midterms. Some of the things the AP cites would be considered standard hardball, some more than that. But the point is, again, using the White House, James Blair wakes up every day saying, what are the 50 things I need to do today to keep the House, make sure we don't lose the Senate, to position the president to raise, all this money to help Vance. This is a machine, and the DNC and its allies are not a machine. So, Dan, I want to ask you to talk about which of those four strike you, but I want to start with, do you think Chuck Schumer read about that in the New York Times? But it's got to be crushing to him to have some major party donors helping Susan Collins, right?
Yeah, I think Casey Wasserman, I suspect, that's a more transactional thing. He needs Trump for the Olympics very much to clean up LA after the fires. So I'm guessing, I have no inside knowledge, that may be tied. Sherry Lansing, I had to read that twice. I raised money from her in years past. She is one of the kind of grand dames of the LA fundraising scene. That to me was like, whoa.
But to me, it amongst other things, it is an indication that they're not afraid of Chuck Schumer, because if a Republican tried to do that and adverse to, say, Mitch McConnell, they'd be terrified that they would be. I think
that goes to the fourth item, and this is like back to reality for Democrats here, is it is the most political White House ever. It is the most intimidating White House in my lifetime, where people are afraid of being investigated. People are afraid of business deals being tanked. People are afraid on many levels. And the White House is not shy about it and goes a step further, which is to say, not just you won't help the opposition, but you will help us if you want to, kind of continue to do business. So it's out in the open. You can say that. I think, to me, the biggest story there is the voter registration issue. You could see it in 2023. It accelerated throughout 2024. We saw it in early vote numbers where the Democrats tried to poo-poo it and say, no, there's nothing to see here. But obviously it was, the canary in the coal mine, and it has not stopped. Usually by now, the new president begins to lose a little steam because the reality of governing and disappointing people, kind of begins to take hold, and you start to lose some energy. Those numbers are accelerating towards Trump or the GOP. So that, to me, the story says 4.5 million people have switched. That is huge.
if you look, there's a guy named Seth Keshel. He's been on my show a bunch of times, who literally lives and breathes voter reg. 29 states do voter registration by party. Every single one of them has moved. Every one of the 29 that does voter registration by party has moved in the direction of the Republican Party. That's either losing seats for losing ground for Dems, or Republicans picking up. So that's the beautiful thing. It's literally, and so you look at the rest of the country, and you got to assume Virginia, we don't have party ID, but there's a bunch of things that you have to say to yourself. If you're the Dems and you're losing in every single state, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, that's a big problem for you. And I think, again, it goes back to what is the DNC and the outside affiliated groups going. By the way, one last little point on that New York Times headline that I got a kick out of. It's amazing how Susan Collins, of all people, I have a big problem when reporters decide who's conservative, liberal, or moderate, like, but they do it all the time. And if you pull that headline back up, it says Collins, who is seen by some as a moderate. It's like they literally can't even call. I mean, there is no question that Susan Collins is a moderate.
1000% Susan Collins is a moderate. And that is why she's getting money from Democrat donors. Susan Collins is an absolute trash Republican. Trash. She might as well be a Democrat as far as I'm concerned. Now, we'll see how that all plays out because, as you heard, Democrat donors are getting behind Susan Collins. So I think it's going to be pretty tough to get rid of Susan Collins, right? Politically. Let me make sure we clarify that. But we'll see. We'll see as we get closer to the midterms, you know, how that's all playing out. But as you heard there, I know there was a lot being spoke about there. J.D. Vance has a real shot at having $2 billion at his disposal. $2 billion, while Democrats are over here scrambling. Yeah. At a time and in a party where money isn't really everything, right? Because we saw it in this past election. Trump didn't have nearly as much cash on hand as the Kamala and, you know, that whole machine had. I think collectively the machine spent over $2 billion to try to get Kamala elected and still lost, right? I think typically Republicans are always behind in terms of the cash. Now Republicans are ahead, and we're on the trajectory to be very, very far ahead.
New fundraising numbers show the Republican Party's main campaign arm with a distinct cash advantage ahead of next year's midterms. Democrats are cautioning that it's still early, highlighting what the DNC calls record grassroots fundraising in June. The party also says that at this point in 2017, just a year before they won 40 seats and regained control of the House, the party had been in worse shape financially than they are right now. So let's bring in News Nation's Joe Khalil live for us there on Capitol Hill. So, Joe, despite this outward optimism, this could mean potential problems for Democrats, at least in the short term.
Of course, there's outward optimism. They're never going to say, yeah, we're defeated, or yeah, we're absolutely effed. Of course, they're not going to say that. They weren't even saying it leading up to the election. They were saying Kamala's going to win. Kamala's going to win. This is going to be a major win for Kamala. And how well did that one work out? I rest my case.
So I think big picture, Nicole, what we've got is next week, Congress is going to recess here in the House, and everyone's going to go home to their districts. Everyone's going to be worried about 2026. This is a big opportunity to connect with your voters and to really figure out what the message is, what the strategy is ahead of that crucial and critical 2026 midterm. There are really reasons for both parties to be optimistic and also serious cause for concern on both sides as well. Let's start with Democrats. You talked about the money a bit. I think their biggest problem really is their polling, which is at historic lows still. They obviously have had a brand problem that the party has been trying to course correct for and trying to shore up more support, but that's going to be an issue for them. This is the fundraising story that you referenced here. Let's take a look at the RNC versus the DNC. The first thing you're seeing now is just the months of June, the totals that they had, and you can see it's almost a 2-to-1 advantage for the RNC in that case. And then there's the just cash that they are sitting on so far. That is a pretty big disparity for Republicans that historically, recently, they have not had. So that's the liability part for Democrats. Where they are looking forward is historically midterms are good for the party that's not in power in the White House. So there is that. They also feel like they finally started as a party to coalesce around a unifying theme and a unifying message. And they're looking at polling for President Trump that has been sort of slumping recently as a sign to be more optimistic for them. On the Republican side, basically, they feel like, though historically the tides usually shift against the party in power, there are a couple of reasons for them that they feel good about. As they go home, they're going to be talking about the one big, beautiful bill. Look, Democrats think that's going to be a major liability for Republicans. Many Republicans we've talked to disagree. They say that there are things that they can go back home and sell, whether it's the tax benefits, whether it's going to be energy policy, or whether it's going to be something more specific within the bill, like no tax on tips, that kind of thing. They feel good about. They also have this cash advantage that they see as enthusiasm, Nicole. So when you look at that, both sides, again, have something to sell to their base, to their voters. But I think we're going to see a lot of that next week, really starting that big push as they're home for their summer recess as a way to connect to voters and see where voters are on these issues.
All right.
Democrats have absolutely nothing to sell to their voters. Absolutely nothing. The only thing that the I take that back. They have something, and it ain't very effective. The only thing the Democrat Party has is Trump bad. That is it, and that is all. And that is why whenever you see any story about Trump, whenever you see Trump say anything or do anything or sign an executive order, all of mainstream media and every single Democrat, all they do is come out and say Trump bad, Trump terrible, Trump the worst ever. That's all they do. Literally all they do. I mean, you can call it. Trump signs an executive order. Hey, listen, if we were able to bet on this stuff, I'd bet the house. I would bet the house. Are Democrats going to come out and go against Trump's executive order? Yes, I'm betting everything. Is mainstream media going to come out and go against Trump's executive order? Yes, I'm betting everything. Is mainstream media going to come out and try to poo-poo Trump meeting with Putin? Yes, I'm betting everything. Like, it's so obvious at this point, and it's so weak. It's so pathetic. And you're seeing some folks in the Democrat Party say, we might want to stop doing this. Like Smirkonish, he said flat out on CNN, like, this is a terrible idea. Maybe we should start giving Trump credit where credit is due, because we kind of look foolish out here just poo-pooing everything that Trump does. It's becoming way too obvious what's going on here, But the bleeding doesn't stop there with the Democrat Party, because not only are they behind on cash, Trump is about to take something else away. And also, it's quite interesting how all of a sudden the Democrat Party is struggling to fundraise money, right after USAID kind of vanished, right after, Act Blue is under investigation. Their donation platform, Act Blue, is under investigation. Kind of interesting how they're struggling with money now, isn't it? Those stories and rumors that they were receiving some kickbacks, all that money that might have been going to Ukraine or USAID kind of was coming back to them through Act Blue, maybe. I'm just saying, kind of interesting, but it doesn't end there.
So between paper ballots, very, very important, paper ballots, and I think maybe even more important, the mail-in voting. We're going to end mail-in voting. It's a fraud. If you have mail-in vote, even Jimmy Carter with this commission, they set it up. He said the one thing about mail-in voting, you will never have an honest election if you have mail-in. And it's time that the Republicans get tough and stop it, because the Democrats want it. It's the only way they can get elected. Because with men and women's sports and with transgender for everybody and open borders and all of the horrible things, and now the new thing is they love crime. They're fighting me on the fact that I've made Washington, D.C. safe. We're not going to get mugged, beaten up, or killed like all the people you've been watching get so badly hurt. I'm glad, I hate to take your time with this, but I'm glad you asked me that question. We're going to stop mail-in ballots because it's corrupt.
Yeah, so another way that Democrats have been attempting to, circumvent the system, mail-in ballots. Trump is saying, hey, we're getting rid of it. We're going to do our very best to get rid of mail-in ballots. Not absentee, not American citizens who live overseas or, our men and women of the military, right? Not absentee, but just mass mail-in ballots. We're getting rid of it. And it's quite interesting. Some of the states that have the most, check that out. Right there. I wonder How close would the race be in California if there were no mail-in ballots allowed? I wonder. Washington, Oregon? I wonder how close would the race be if mail-in ballots were not allowed. What do y'all think? Let me know. Let me know. I believe Trump lost California by 14, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that. I'm probably off. But it wasn't as big of a gap as you might think. Okay? So I just wonder how close that would be. If not, a Republican actually winning California if no mail-in ballots are allowed. So, I mean, from all fronts, the Democrat Party is getting cooked. Absolutely cooked, right? From the voter registration front, which we talked about in the first video, so definitely go check it out. We go into a lot more detail on that. To the cash front, the donations, they're getting cooked on that too. They had over $2 billion spent on the Kamala Harris campaign, and Trump had nowhere near that spent on his campaign, and they still lost. So now with a budget, with a money deficit, you think they're gonna win? Come on now, let's be real here. Not only that, but Trump is trying to get rid of mail-in ballots. But even on top of that, you got the House seats, man. Got the House seats. I mean, look at how much they've already gerrymandered. I hear Gavin Newsom threatening to gerrymander California, and he can do that all he wants to. But the rest of their states are cooked, and he can barely squeeze out anything anyway. Republicans only had 9 seats in California. He's squeezing out another 5. It's going to be interesting to see how that map is drawn up to squeeze out 5 more seats from Republicans in California. I'm not even worried about it. It's going to be comical to see how they draw the lines on that. But you got Maine, 36% Republican, 0 seats. 42% Republican, 0 seats. 46% Republican, 0 seats. 46, 0. 48, 42, 32, 38, 42, all 0 seats. But they say, we don't gerrymander. We don't gerrymander, okay? And even in the states where they did give us some seats, California, 40%. We got 20% of the actual representation. Illinois, almost half. We got 17%, okay? New York, 26%. Like, look at these numbers, man. They can't squeeze out anything more from the Republican Party, and that's why they are panicking that, states like Texas, Florida, Missouri, Indiana are all in the process of doing the exact same thing that they have been doing because they realize, well, we can't do anything. We can't fight back. California is the only place that we can fight back, and we can only do it by 5. So, yeah, we might nullify Texas, but what about Florida? What about Missouri? What about Indiana? What about Ohio? Right? What about some of these other Republican states? They're cooked. They're absolutely cooked. And I'm going to enjoy watching the fallout. Get your popcorn ready, baby. These next few years are going to be quite interesting. Midterms is going to be really, really interesting. Following a loss in midterms, it is going to be comical to watch. I hope y'all got some good popcorn ready because, boy, you gonna need it. Because it's going to be one hell of a show following a major loss in the midterms from the Democrat Party. It's going to be real interesting to see. But y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions about this. Make sure you hit the like button and share this video. All right? It's the arrow button down below. You can copy the link and send it to anywhere you like. Paste it on your Twitter. Paste it on your Instagram story. Wherever. All right? Y'all stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.